Welcome back to the Gameplay Garage. I'm Vortac, and as always, I am joined by Weem. How's it going?
Good. As always, I am indeed here.
Yes. I can't seem to get rid of you. You haven't taken the hint, and I've had to awkwardly keep inviting you to do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got the mini fridge in here, so I've just I'm taking up all the space now. I brought my own food.
Yeah, I wish you'd bring your own beer, because the mini fridge is simply an end table at this point.
Yeah, well, that's what I have you for. That I get from you. I just take it from you.
Great. Well, anyway, we're here today talking about Wurm Unlimited, and to understand why we have to say unlimited at the end, we just call it Wurm, but I have to sit here and explain to people who may not know the difference between Wurm Online and Wurm Unlimited. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Because this is always kind of challenging to explain to folks, especially when we're talking about old games that you may not have heard of or played in a while or seen. There's a lot of people out there who probably have heard of Wurm Online. It's basically a big, massive MMO-style game, but think of kind of like Minecraft in the sense of you pick a spot, you build, you go out, you collect resources, you try to survive. There's monsters and there's skills to level up. So that game's been around since, 2009, I think?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, and I would say in about 20, what was it, like 2014? We should really know before going into these shows.
we should do our research.
Yeah, well, I just want to have a candid conversation about a game I like. I'm not a journalist, okay?
Indeed,
I just play one online.
We pretend.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We played a ton a few years ago, and that was when it was really popular for us. We played a version called Wurm Unlimited, which is an extension of Wurm Online. Basically, a game where, like Minecraft, you actually buy the game once, and you set up a server for you and your friends, or you can join one of the many servers out there, and you can play a game that is Wurm at its core, except people can alter the server to do different things. Specifically, the biggest thing that brought me on board was the level of grind that was cut out simply by being able to multiply the speed at which you get experience. And that was the draw for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much in the same boat. I played Wurm Online just a tiny bit. I jumped in and somebody had pointed me. They're like, oh, you could build over here. I was like, cool. I don't even know what that means. I haven't played this before. I guess I'll figure it out. And stuff seemed to take a while, and I got really hung up on, there was really kind of no tutorial or anything. But yeah, it seemed like progress would be really slow. And so when it came to Wurm Unlimited, that's one of the key features of a server you look at is the skill speed. You may see for those who don't know, you may see something like skill speed 7.5x or whatever. And that means that you're gaining skills at 7.5 times the speed of a normal Wurm Online server. So, it's pretty well sped up. And even something at 7 times, that still can take a while to get things done.
Yes. I think the most fun I had playing that game was at times 10. That seemed to be a good balance.
You get a lot of cool stuff done.
Yeah. So that's the difference. In a nutshell, Wurm Online is a legitimate MMORPG where you play this big open world. You play in this big open world. You have to keep you would imagine an MMO where you build stuff. That's going to get crowded fast, but you actually have to keep logging in. You have to keep your property maintained. Otherwise, it'll disintegrate into nothing, and someone else can come and take your land if you leave it alone long enough. And that's how they get around that. Wurm Unlimited is more of an experience that we've grown accustomed to as people who kind of have played a lot of Minecraft and games like that, where you control the server, you control the rules. You don't necessarily have to force people to log in every single month or whatever it is to keep their property up. You can, but you can customize it, and that experience was really cool. On top of the fact that you don't have an online monthly fee to keep up with either, which Wurm Online has. Wurm Unlimited is a one-time purchase. So those are the big differences. And we want to explain that because the reason we're talking about Wurm today, and like I said a little bit ago, we played it a long time ago and had a lot of fun with it, but the reason it comes up today is because some news has dropped that's very interesting and that can only happen to a game that's in this kind of, split audience situation. And that is that Wurm Online is going to continue getting content Wurm Unlimited is going to focus more on the modding community, and they're not going to be bringing Wurm Online content into Wurm Unlimited for the foreseeable future.
And I find that pretty interesting. That was one of the other big features about the game. We talked about kind of things being sped up, but there was also the element of modding, and that was really cool. People made some really cool mods. We played on a couple different servers that would introduce different kinds of mods, and it was just kind of spice things up, made it exciting. And so now they're going to dial back the content dial back meaning they're not going to do the content anymore for Unlimited, but they are going to work on things that make some of the modding a bit more easy. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what people continue to do for the game. It will keep me interested for sure, seeing some new mods.
Yeah, and I mean, we should have mentioned this at the beginning. We actually, the footage we recorded was mostly Weem and I revisiting the game after a very long break. And the footage you're seeing is from a modded Wurm server that we played on for a while and wanted to come back. And we're actually walking around Weem's property. And I'm referencing footage. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm referencing footage on YouTube. You can get the podcast in audio form, or you can watch on YouTube. And that's what you would see if you visited the YouTube page. So it's Weem's property that he worked on that modded server.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite settlement. Granted, this was on the highly sped up server, so it allowed us to get quite a bit of cool stuff done. I used it as a way to experiment with things that I hadn't done before, especially when it gets into some of the priest abilities and everything. I'd never really done that because I spent so much time building, and that took up so much time. I was like, on this server, I'm going to start doing some things I've never done before just so I can experience it. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite settlement and setup that we went walking through there.
Yeah, I can tell just by how much work you put into it, despite that server being sped up so much. You'll notice in the video, we start to actually build our own little house, and you're going to get to see the time it takes to kind of, even at that speed, build something. And even at that speed, you still get that sense of pride of like, oh my gosh, finally, my walls are up. Like, I have a house. This is so cool. So,
yeah,
you know, Weem's massive settlement is crazy, and even at that level. And the mods on that server, I don't even recall what was modded about it and what wasn't. I just know the experience was very, very unique, very interesting, because I'd never played modded Wurm before.
This was all, I think, I want to say that's pretty much all I can really count, is that I've only played that. I did, as I mentioned, I jumped into Wurm Online, but maybe 15 minutes tops,
Right.
and never went back to it until Wurm Unlimited. I thought, oh, this is approachable for me. This is kind of cool. So it's hard for me. When I think of Wurm Online, the only thing I can think of is, oh, things take longer. But there's so many mods and everything I don't know. Sometimes there's things in there that I might think are just features of the game that somebody could tell me, well, no, that's actually not in Wurm Online. And I would shrug, say, oh, I had no idea. Thought it was just part of the game, maybe.
Back when I was streaming it a lot on my Twitch channel, that happened. People would come in and say, you know, oh, well, in Wurm Online, X, you know. And it was always funny because I, at the time, assumed that this was a direct port of Wurm Online and there was no content differences, but that was starting to become apparent just by the community jumping in on the conversation. Because, like you, I only had minutes of experience with Wurm Online before I'm like, well, this is cool, but I don't know if I have time for this level of detail. And man, it would take it's I have RuneScape. I don't need another grindy MMO right now.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, yeah, like you, my first experience with Wurm Online. I just didn't realize the content was going to be different, and now it's going to continue to be different.
I think I was actually wondering, as we were kind of talking about Wurm and we were running around in that footage, kind of thinking about this podcast, and it got me really thinking about what I liked a lot about Wurm. And so I was kind of curious what aspect, maybe we start with you. I'm curious what you really like about the game. What is it about that game that has you kind of go back to it? I feel like we're kind of the same. Like, we kind of have moments where we're like, oh man, Wurm, you kind of miss it and want to go back. What is it about the game that draws you in?
I like having something that I can kind of put some blood, sweat, and tears into. unfortunately for people listening, you're going to hear me compare this to Minecraft a lot because even though Wurm is technically older, Minecraft still has more of a hold on me. I played more of it. And so at the time I picked up Wurm, I had already played a lot of Minecraft. And what I enjoy about Minecraft is the freedom, the building and all that stuff. But it what I liked about Wurm was that I didn't have to think too hard to make a good looking like build because the walls were already kind of a template. You just decide I want one of like 4 different types of wall right now. Oh, okay, I'll do the stone wall. That sounds cool. Oh, stone wall with window. Cool. And that I liked. I like that, I got to exercise different creative muscles than I would in Minecraft. I also really just enjoyed the people coming together because you could play that game by yourself. There's nothing stopping you, but it's a lot more fun to start a settlement and have people join you and watch a community kind of build around it. And it features an economy. That's something Minecraft doesn't have, or at least if mods try to add it, it's always interesting. It has a currency system. It has an economy, and you kind of start trading with people. Everyone has to kind of pick a role because there's the skill points. Even on a sped up server, there's just not really enough time to level your farming and level your wood cutting and level your crafting and whatever and cooking. So everyone kind of picks up a role, and I love that so much. I love having everybody getting together and just helping each other out, trading, experimenting with the currency, and yeah. So it kind of scratches all the itches for me. The building and the community aspect is in short.
For sure. That's a lot. We share a lot in common there about what we really like about the game. And for me, it was like a lot of potential. My mind would get racing with like all the different things you could do, and similar, to having the community and everything. For example, I always, when I was playing Wurm, I was like, one of these days I'm gonna set up a server for me and like friends and everything, and maybe even try to have some kind of project like, hey, let's not break out into all these different settlements. Let's make like one really big settlement, because I think that'd be really cool. Some like giant city, for example.
Yeah.
That was the kind of stuff that would fuel me when I was playing. And also just, maybe my imagination would run away from me, but I could visualize myself there. And I get a lot from just games in general, even city builders and everything, where you're laying out streets and buildings. I can kind of imagine being there, and I can imagine what the streets look like, and that makes me want to change them in different ways. Wurm was, similar. I would think about those kind of things, be like, oh, this seems really cool. And then the graphics would start to disappear at that point. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like my imagination takes over. So I always liked that about the game, and basically, like I said, that potential. There's so much you could do there. But of course, the game is getting on in years now, and I think I tell you somewhat frequently that I just want a modern version of the game at this point. I want somebody to come along and say, "This is Wurm, but next gen." I would love that.
I think for anyone listening who hasn't seen the game before, what Weem's describing too is important because the game is older and its age in its graphics definitely shows, especially in the UI. The UI desperately needs an update, and the developers have acknowledged that. I don't know now if Wurm Unlimited is ever going to get an improved UI or not. It's been said that was happening, but you just never know. And I feel the same way. I love that everyone can get together and build this big settlement, but man, it would be nice to see someone else's take on this game and see a modern version of it. Not that I'm trying to hate on Wurm, because Wurm is just so cool. And like you said, the graphics disappear after a while. It's not really, you don't really notice that you're playing a very old game especially once you get your settlement working. I mean, you build roads and houses and all this stuff, and it feels like you're in the city, and it doesn't matter what it looks like on the surface.
And the server that we have the footage of we were playing on, we kind of walked through my place. This is kind of another aspect of it. The game, because it takes a while to accomplish things, there are benefits to that. One is that you, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, you feel this like connection to it. You said through blood, sweat, and tears. When you make something cool and you finish it, that's something that other people playing on that server are like, wow, check that out. With something like Minecraft, there's a lot of stuff you could do, but it seems like anybody could have done it. In this case, it's like you have to think of what's cool to you, and then you have to dedicate that time. So when you see the work of other people, it's kind of like awe-inspiring. Like, wow, not only does that look really cool, but man, that took some effort and energy and time. And kind of another thing along those lines that makes it fun for me was, again, going back to the footage, this time around I thought, what do I want to do? I want to try some things I haven't done before, but I started thinking of a theme. And so the place that we walked through, my little settlement there, was really designed with kind of like a winery in mind. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to like grow grapes and I'm going to make wine. Like that's going to be, the aspect of this character and this settlement that I put together. And Wurm's the kind of game where you can do that. There's so many different skills and so many things to focus on. You could say, for example, I'm going to be a shipbuilder, and build like on the water's edge with like docks and really hone your skills of crafting boats such that other people are like, I need to buy boats from this person because I don't have the time. My time is dedicated to making a winery, for example.
Right.
I really want to like do that, and I can't do both because that would just take way too long. So that was kind of one of the, the promises of that game was to just have this like wide-ranging set of skills that you could really focus in on that you pretty much had to dedicate yourself to. That always drew me in.
Yeah. I've definitely played games that have taken notes out of that book before. One, I'm going to say, one that comes to mind a lot is called Eco.
There it is.
It's different though, and we won't get into it right now. Maybe someday I'll convince Weem to play it long enough to do a show on it, but there has been, I would say, attempts, but the reason it's such a desire to play more of it and see a person's take on it is because even a game like Eco that comes close doesn't capture the same feeling that we get playing Wurm. I don't think it can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, oh man, you said boats, and I forgot how long it takes to make a boat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's funny because the other thing too is that game. It is kind of a niche game when you think about how long things take. And just to kind of go back to another benefit, I consider it a benefit. It may seem weird, but I've actually had other people tell me this as well. Because the game takes so long, because you have to dedicate so much time, you tend to have a more mature or like older audience playing it, people with more patience. Not to say that young players or even kids can't enjoy the game, because they do. But if you are an impatient person who kind of wants things like right away, and maybe you've run into people like that, and you're like, man, those people are everywhere in these kind of games. Expect to have everything ultra fast. This is definitely a slower paced game, and you end up being surrounded by people who are really, slowed down and more patient. And it's, as it so happens, oftentimes more mature. Because the game just takes so much time, and that's kind of like a nice thing too. That the other people around you are going to appreciate, kind of the work that you're putting into it, because if they didn't, if they were like, that looks lame or whatever, they probably would have left the game long ago because the game was too slow for them.
Right. I definitely in my settlements I created had people too that saw us streaming it, making videos, whatever, and they got in the settlement and realized very quickly, like, oh wow, this was no joke. Like, I really need to dedicate time to this, and I don't have that time right now. And yeah, I definitely had people drop out for sure.
One of the things I've been thinking about recently is, I talk about kind of a next gen version of a Wurm. If somebody came along and said, well, we basically want to make Wurm, the slower paced game takes a while to do things, but more modern, technology and features used, my mind starts racing with ideas. And I don't know, have you thought of anything you would like to see if somebody came along and did that? Is there anything that stands out? Oh man, well, if you're going to do that, here's like a big thing I'd like to see happen. that Wurm currently isn't doing.
Yeah, larger text.
So easy stuff.
I mean, I wasn't kidding. Like, the UI desperately needs updating. It worked probably on older monitors, but oh my gosh, I have good eyes right now, but man, like, oh, you just need a magnifying glass at some points, and there's so much stuff to craft. So you're scrolling through this crafting menu, and you can't see it. It's just a blur. Even if you can read the text, there's so much there. I'm not saying I want less, but maybe pictures. You know, like, oh, this is birch furniture. I don't really want birch furniture in my house. Okay, scrolling on. Okay, cool. Dark oak looks good. Man, that would be that's always with Wurm the first thing. If someone's gonna step into that playing field, yeah, hey, please modernize the UI. I don't know. I think in games that are going to be taking a stab at this genre of like community work togetherness. I don't know what you call this genre because it's not survival. Do you have a word for it?
I don't offhand.
Okay, good. I'm not crazy. So whatever you want to call this weird, slice of the video game world, if someone wants to take a stab at this, I think the most important thing is limitations. And what I mean is, like going back to Minecraft, the fact that, you can do whatever you want whenever you want Minecraft is all based on skills. And there are none. You can just go mining for what you need when you need it. There's no reason to communicate with anyone else on the server because, well, why would I trade them? I can go get my own coal. I don't need them, Yeah. And people make it happen anyway. There's arguments to be made. I'm not trying to argue that Minecraft doesn't do that, period. What I'm saying is if the game at its core made it impossible to go mining because you chose a profession already, that, I think, is what starts the process of making a game like Wurm. And I think that would be the most important aspect to focus on is this is you. Like, this is your corner. You can switch, and it'll cost you, but this is the thing you chose to do, and you're going to do it for the community. And just to add to that, I've played games that do that, going back to Eco. That Eco does that. The problem is you have to find a way to do it that doesn't make it boring, because at a certain point, if you're holding up your end of the bargain in a game like Eco or Wurm, and then no one else is logging in enough to trade you, like, oh, I made all this iron, but I need food, and the food guy hasn't logged in. There's no chef, there's no farmer. What am I supposed to do? You have to give those people something else to do in the interim while the chef is at work in real life.
And that kind of touches on, for me, like one of the things I would have loved to have seen in like a Wurm or games like this. And the way I describe it to people is I say, I want regionally specific resources. And so you're talking about these limitations at like a character level, and I like that. Like you choose, well, I'm going to be a miner, and other people can't really mine unless they also choose to be miners. I think that's one way to definitely do it. Another is to have, for example, gold appear in the world, but only in these certain set of mountains, like these mountains in the northwest, and silver is in these hills, in the south, and then there's these certain crops that only grow in this certain area of the northwest. You know what I mean? So that you basically push trade. So trade actually matters. Whereas in Wurm, you can be plopped down anywhere in the world, anywhere, and then just start digging into a hillside to make a mine. And you'll find all the resources you need in there. Gold, all the different kinds of metals can be found as long as you dig around enough. So for me, that was kind of like, I would love to see a feature like that, because it just naturally starts to make trade actually important. Because if you have to dedicate your time to one area like that, well, I'm going to mine here. Well, then you're going to have a settlement. You're going to have your kind of workbenches there, and you can't be all over the world all the time, So you're saying, well, I've got gold, you've got silver way over there. Let's trade, I think that would be really cool in a game like this. But again, as you said, making it limited by character, I think that could work too.
And that idea is genius, first of all, because I don't know of any, I can't think of any game off the top of my head that limits resources based on location on the map and is a big community-wide, like, build a settlement together kind of game. You know, I mean, and there's definitely games that limit resources on just that are biome dependent on maps, you know, plenty, but there's none that incorporated into that kind of world where everyone's together, everyone's working on something. Your idea just sparked an idea that I have now. Like, if we're just inventing games now. So not only that, but imagine the world's kind of big, right? It's not infinite, but it's big, and the map it has limited resources. So now you're on top of iron, and someone to the north is on top of a lot of gold, and you want to conduct trade with them. But you don't want to be the one to trade. You need to be working on your iron business. You don't have time to trade. You don't have time to get on a boat. What if maybe this would be another job in the settlement or whatever, but what if someone's job was to hire people to do trade? And I don't mean real people. What if you could get NPCs like to do the trade for you, and you had to pay them a fee out of the community chest? Like, it just kind of helps stimulate the economy, because now you have NPCs in the game that help you with automation. So you build them the ship, or maybe your ship builder builds them the ship, but no one actually has to go and make the 20-minute journey over to their camp. You just send your NPCs to do it.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Yeah, for sure. And I think like there could even be players who that could be their, they're a trader. And I may have missed that you mentioned that. I was listening to the NPC part.
No.
Yeah, players who be merchants, basically.
Yeah, players could do that. I'm just imagining in Wurm, when you get on a boat and you want to go visit somebody, especially if the wind is against you, and yes, they take that into account, it can be a very, very long journey. You have to figure out a way to get there that is the wind is a little bit on your side, and man, it could take you just as long to build a freaking boat as it could to use the thing. So I'm imagining if we're to improve on a game like Wurm, it would be really cool to incorporate NPCs beyond just hiring guards, because we've been able to hire guards in these games for a long time. And that's kind of neat. You don't have to guard your settlement. If a monster comes in, your guards handle it, and it's automated, and you get to just kind of continue doing whatever you're doing. You can even use them to help you. If you're getting chased out of the woods, you can run to the town square, and the guards will be like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can kill him for you. So just expanding on that idea, if people want to do their own trade, that'd be great. But I'm just thinking of new things I haven't seen in this kind of game yet, and that would be one of them. Use NPCs as automation instead of having NPCs standing in a village square all day waiting for you to trade with them, which is not realistic at all. I'm just imagining the life that would bring to a village, just watching your NPC's ship come back after a trade. The dudes get off, they start unloading it. There's another NPC or maybe a player there with a cart. They load these things onto the cart and bring it to the whole town's stockpile, and then only then when it's in the stockpile can you access it, once it's unloaded and ready to go.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You're welcome, modders. You're welcome.
Make it happen. One of the other things that I think would be really cool is I really like, excuse me, I like checking out different historical stuff. I'm not like a history buff, but I definitely can get sucked into different areas. Like, for example, colonial America is kind of my favorite time period, but I've been recently getting into like the Mesoamerica element of like Aztec, right? The Aztecs and everything.
Right.
And learning more about that. And I was actually thinking about this today, that, in learning more about the Aztecs recently, I was thinking, how cool would that be that you had like civilizations you could choose from in something like Wurm. Wurm has got, it's kind of like fantasy, but not. It's like the Dark Age thing. And so you've got like, you armor, you wear leather or like, plate mail and stuff. But I think it would be cool if you could do something like, choose like the Aztecs, for example, and the technology actually be, maybe not technology, but some skill stuff actually be separated a bit. I think that would be pretty cool, so that you could, for example, take a boat somewhere, as you do right now in the game, and go somewhere and go, oh, well, this person's settlement over here, he's playing like the Aztec style, and it would be that style of building. You know what I mean? When you get over there, it'd be more tropical area. There'd be like, say palm tree kind of stuff, different like adobe structures, temples, things like that. That's kind of the tile sets you have to choose from. You know what I mean? Yeah. Instead of like stone and timber, You know what I mean? You have Adobe and things like that. The crops would vary. I think that would be really, really cool, to have a couple different like civilizations to choose from that were within the same time period. I think that could be pretty cool. The city, the Aztec city, and I never quite get the pronouncing of this name right, but I think it's Tenochtitlan, and that's like where Mexico City currently is. It used to be a big swamp, and they had a couple little islands, and they started building on the island, and it's kind of called the Venice of Mesoamerica. And they kind of built these little islands. Each one had they're like football field in size, where they would grow crops, and it spread over the whole area of like this lake. And I thought, man, that would be cool to build in like Wurm, have like this setup, like all these canals and everything, you know what I mean? But have like their crops and their type of rafts and everything. And they really didn't have like horses there, and I thought, man, that would be really cool to really have it specific to like their region, you know what I mean? I think you could do that in a more modern version. I don't feel like that could be easily done with the game currently, even with mods. That would be a huge undertaking, but
Massive. But that's so cool.
I think that would just be awesome. Super cool.
That definitely underlines like the value that a map like that could have. One where it's just sprawling with different resources, different limitations given just the area you pick, on the map. Like, oh, this Arctic area like has these benefits but these downsides, and maybe Arctic's a bad example. Mostly downsides, but versus the people in the desert. I don't know. It's cool to think that the biome would not be easy to traverse. You couldn't just leave. You couldn't just give up on it. Like if you want to play on this server, you got to stay where you landed and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
If you don't like not having horses, maybe find a settlement that does and trade with them.
Yeah, and it can be a balance thing, you know what I mean? If you don't have certain aspects, you make up for it in other ways, like, well, we don't have horses in this area, but the resources that we make, are used in more recipes, for example, that everyone needs. So, they're worth more. A little bit harder for us to kind of get together, but they're worth more. So there's like a balance there,
Yeah, it kind of, I don't know why I thought of this, but it kind of feels a little bit like, why I thought of it? It's because the concept that we're talking about right now only works if a number of people get together and actually pull through. And you need to play with people who are willing to show up every week or whenever you schedule and play the game, because you literally could not play a game like that alone. And I think video games, especially nowadays, are tailored to a solo experience. So, I wonder if that would work, first of all. And secondly, to that point, I wonder if this is a decent time to try something like that, considering that tabletop games are coming back, and the only way to play a tabletop game is to have a group of friends and sit down and play together.
And there's ways to approach it too, I think. Like even when you were saying, like you take people and you give them, for example, I choose to be a miner. This is just a quick little idea. If I choose to play a miner, maybe when I'm offline, my character is still represented in game standing there. And you can get the benefits of that job while someone's offline, but it's just a lot less than you could if that person was playing their character. Maybe there's some math that says if you're this skill level and you're a miner, then when you're in offline mode, you gather, quote unquote, X amount of this resource per hour that you're offline. When compared to you being online, it's not as good. At least you'd have that,
Yeah, that'd be a way to solve it for sure. And again, another feature I can't think of one game, in that genre that has done anything like that. But overall, I mean, these ideas are only sparked from like the love I've had for playing Wurm, and thinking about ways that it could be improved. Sure, but we worked around the fact that, yeah, all the resources are everywhere. It doesn't matter if they're everywhere. It was still really hard to get them, and you needed someone dedicated to doing it.
Yeah.
So I just think that, yes, it can always be done differently and arguably better. But if you haven't played Wurm, check it out. It's, especially if you're into games like that where you kind of grind and you work together and it's so cool. Wurm Online, I guess Wurm Online has a very dedicated fan base willing to grind to the ultimate extent because Wurm Online's skill leveling is slow, but the community around it is so dedicated and so awesome. And so if you like that, get Wurm Online. But Wurm Unlimited still has a very big following, and they're so diverse in the different servers and mods and things like that.
I agree. If any of that sounds interesting, definitely check it out. And we have, the winter sale is going to be coming soon, so I'm sure it will go on sale. I don't know. Actually, I think I have the store page up here now. Let's see. What is it on Steam? Actually, it's am I on the right page? I am. Wurm. It's 75% off right now. It's actually $7.50 right now from $30.
How long is that going to last?
Ends December 3rd. So I know they're in the autumn sale right now, so I just assumed they wouldn't have a good sale till winter, but apparently they're doing something with this autumn sale. So it's $7.50 until the 3rd. And that's the one-time buy. Again, for those who don't know, it's a one-time buy, and that's it. There's a lot of servers online. People are always excited to get new players to their servers, so I definitely recommend it.
You have till tomorrow, folks, if you're listening to this the day it comes out.
Oh, there is that. I suppose by the time this comes out.
That's why I was asking, because I'm like, when does this come out again? Oh, the 2nd.
Yeah, and if it says December 3rd, and that's typically 10 a.m. Where I am. Same coast that they are. Same coast that Valve's at. That's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific. Yep. On the 3rd.
So there you go. I mean, that's a bargain too for how many hours. That's one of the top 5 games on my list of games with all the hours. As far as hours go, that's in the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine right now because I'm on the page. It says I have 599.3, so just about to hit 600.
I don't have mine open, but it's somewhere north of 300, possibly 400. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's a lot for me. I'm a busy person.
I'm busy, gosh darn it.
Yeah. Well, I think we about covered it.
Yeah, we've rambled on about Wurm, which we both had a lot of fun playing. We did a number of videos on that. For me, some of those videos were definitely among my favorite. We had the Follywood series, which I just had a blast with. I think we even kept some outtakes in one of the videos, and I was dying. I couldn't get through some of it. We were laughing pretty good. So it's definitely had some great experiences with the game. And especially one of my fondest memories is actually the first time, I think it's the first time I played Wurm Unlimited was with you, and they had the server set up. Who set that up? It was TJ and...
I think our friends TJ and Excel.
Excel, yeah. I think so. And I had a blast there. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this game. Well, always remember that first town, that first settlement I set up. Met a number of people there too, Alex, and it was the first time meeting Reaper and some others there as well. Might have been the first time I played. Yeah, actually, it wasn't on that server. The next server I played on was the first time I met Chloe. Wow.
So, I mean, and the people we're talking about are like, these are long-term friendships now. So
yeah,
it's really cool. Whenever Wurm comes up in conversation, I'm always hesitant to show people because it's such a niche kind of game. You really got to be a particular kind of gamer, I guess, if you're going to enjoy Wurm. And I'm always surprised. Like, I think that, and then I show it to people. I'm like, oh, so maybe like one of these people out of the 5 I'm showing it to will care. I played it on Twitch, and a bunch of people joined the settlement. I was mind blown by the people who were new to the game and taking to it so well.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of challenges they're learning with that tiny little UI and the graphics and all the things that are not kosher when it comes to like modern gaming, but it's kind of timeless in that too. So, well, with that, I think we're going to call it here. Much thanks to you, Weem, for making time.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
And we will see you guys next time. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. Weem is at youtube.com/Weemcast. I am at youtube.com/VortacVids. You can check out our Wurm videos as well as other gameplay if you'd like, and we'd greatly appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Gameplay Garage podcast. Don't forget to find us on your favorite podcast app. where you can download the show and also leave us a rating if you'd like. We'll see you next time.